Hello everyone, and welcome to the demo session on business analysis training program. So just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Chetan Mehta and I'm the instructor for the course. I have a bachelor's in marketing and an MBA in finance, and in all I have 14 years of work experience, out of which 4 years I've mainly worked in the business development and marketing side, and for the past 10 years I've been working as a business analyst. As of now I'm working with Booz Allen Hamilton as a business analyst manager. So I'll straight go to the agenda of this session. So today's agenda is basically to give you a brief introduction on the business analysis discipline, what business analysis field is all about, what is the role of a business analyst, why it's so critical in today's environment to perform this activity. We'll also go over some of the key skills required for becoming a good business analyst, and of course, the career prospects, not only once you get in as a business analyst, but also what is the future roadmap. And then we'll go over the training roadmap, some of the key highlights of the program, how the program has been structured, and then we can have the open forum for all the Q&A session. So before I go to the business analysis, right, and start talking about the BA role itself, I want to first spend few minutes on what the business, what entails the business. What do you mean by business? So when we talk about a business entity, it can be divided into two different parts. One is the commercial entities, and the other one is the non-commercial entities. So when we talk about the business entity on the commercial side, it's mainly the goal of any commercial business entity is to minimize the cost, maximize the profit, and if they have borrowed money from the stakeholders or the shareholders, maximizing their shareholder value. So profit maximization, cost minimization, and maximizing the shareholder value are the three basic principles of any commercial entity. So for example, Apple or Microsoft, McDonald's, Exxon, Dell, you name any of these companies or business entities, their main goal is to maximize the profit, minimize the cost, and maximize the shareholder value, right, by giving some sort of dividends, basically profit sharing. So on the other side of the spectrum, we have the non-commercial activities, where the goal is not to maximize the profit. Now within the non-commercial, we have two further bifurcations. One is NPOs, what we call the non-profit organizations, or NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and the charity organizations. So in the non-profit organizations, NPOs, here the goal is to distribute, or rather to reinvest the money which they earn or the revenue they earn towards accomplishing the mission or the goal for which they have started the organization. So NPO is, for example, I'll take an example. Let's take an example of a PMI, Project Management Institute. right? So in order to become a member, you need to pay some fees for that. In order to attend their seminars or conferences, it's not free. You need to pay for that. So they have some revenues coming in. It's not that they are there for charity. They are taking money from people. They have their own set of costs. They have their own, set of people who are working for them as a full-time employee. So they have to pay their salaries. So they are having the revenue. They have having their own cost, but whatever profit they make, it's again reinvested towards the same cause of promoting the project management discipline. So there's a subtle difference between when we talk about the commercial entity as compared to the non-commercial entity, the NPOs. And the third one is the charitable organizations, where it's mainly the goal is the philanthropic goals. So for example, you name like Bill Gates Foundation or Greenpeace, American Red Cross. So all these are charitable organizations. So here the way they work is, they take money from some source, maybe government or some rich business house or some billionaire, and they try to either satisfy some sort of requirement towards a particular group, or they are fulfilling some cause, for some social cause. They will spend that money, right? So again, commercial and non-commercial. Within the non-commercial, we have two different. We have the NPOs and the charitable organizations, right? But now we will focus more towards the commercial entities, because that's where probably you will get the job, or most of the jobs are towards in that sector. So when we talk about the commercial entities, they are of course there to sell some sort of product or a service, right? At the end of the day, they need to sell something. So either it's a product or a service, a tangible or non-intangible um, element. And these commercial entities, they have their own structure. That means they have their own organizational structure, they have their own departmental units, they have their own set of processes, operations, people working within those departments. So for example, if I ask you what are some of the key or typical business units or departments within a commercial entity, it's mainly like, for example, production, operations, marketing, sales, logistics, information technology, finance, accounts, research and development, legal, human resources, health and safety. So these are some of the common or the most commonly seen departments within an organization. So within these departments or units, you will have a set of processes which will be working in tandem with each other in order to produce that product or a service. So when I talk about a process is basically a set of activities performed within an organization to achieve a desirable output. That means you may have different set of activities or processes. Order processing can be one process, payment processing, account reconciliation, right? Inventory management. These are some of the you know examples of processes performed. So the idea is the process will take some input, it will perform some set of activities and give an output to the next process. So the next process will take the input from the previous one and it will continue working um, in order to accomplish the goal. And then we have the people who are participating in these processes, right? So there will be some sorry, some sort of role who is supporting that business process. So let's take an example. The customer, he or she creates and submit an order. So we have the customer as a role, and submit order is a process. So you see the way this customer is interacting with this process is he or she will create an order and submit an order. Similarly, you can have operations personnel who will be responsible to process an order. So here we have the role is operations personnel, and process order will be your process name. So the reason I'm trying to say is, you have within the commercial organization, you have the organizational structure, you have the different departments. Within the departments, you have the different processes. Within the processes, you have the operations, and all this is being done by the humans or some sort of role. And of course, in today's world, it's not only the humans, but also it may be a machine, it may be some sort of application or software who is participating in the process. So this is basically what a typical business organization will look like. Now, why do these companies perform all these things? Why do they have a different set of structure, different departments, processes? They hire people, they have these set of machines or some sort of software application. Of course, to make a product or a service. But again, if you go back one step back and ask this question, okay, why do they want to do this? Are they just doing it randomly? And the answer is no. They are doing it for a purpose. So any corporation which exists today, whether it's a commercial, whether it's a NPO or it's a charitable organization, they have a vision. They have a set vision for which they are doing all this. When I talk about a vision is basically where do you want to see yourself or your organization in like 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years down the line. So it's at a very high level, but it's just the roadmap where you want to steer your organization. So once you have a vision established, you need to set up some goals which are more specific, but which are mapped back to your vision. And in order to support those goals, you need to come up with the strategies on how you will achieve those goals so that you can meet your vision. So let me take an example here. So let's take an hypothetical example of a US bank. That's the name of the bank based in Minneapolis. So the management decides that, okay, in 10 years down the line, we want to be a market leader in retail banking space. So that's a vision. We don't have any specifics. That's what they want to be in 10 years down the line. So in order to support the vision, the goal they come up with is to gain 20% market share in the retail banking space by 2020 in North American market. So you see, it's more specific now. I'm being very specific that by 2020, we want to gain 20% market share in the retail banking space, and where? In the North American market. So that's a goal. And typically we talk about goal as a SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So we'll talk more into detail if you in the course, but this is just to give you some a flavor of what the goal is. So they have to be more specific. And in order to support the goal, the management may come up with a different set of strategies. So for example, one may be to reduce operating costs by 4 million US dollars. That's one of the reason, that's one of the strategy we have. The second may be to take advantage of new technologies coming in. So as you know, like in today's environment, you may have so many new innovations and new technological breakthroughs which the companies can leverage upon. And they can, of course, once you have this advantage, you can always save some money there and also take advantage of those new tools and technologies. The third one they may come up with, we want to penetrate into the Midwest region because we don't have much existence there. And we will do this by opening new branches, new ATMs. We may partner with new stores. And finally, they may say that one of the strategy we will have is to improve our customer service, because they have realized that, okay, our customer service is lacking behind as compared to the competitors. So they may do some benchmarking. They may say, okay, our competitors are doing certain activities in certain time and we are taking more time. So for example, they may say that currently a loan processing request takes 10 days as compared to our competition, which takes only 2 days. So that's a big issue we have. We need to improve that part of the process. So you see, now you have the vision, you have the goals, and you have the strategies aligned with each other, and that will drive the entire organization. That will drive how they structure their organization, how they do their processes, how they hire the people, what sort of systems they will implement. So now let's take a look at the ecosystem. What is an ecosystem? Now an ecosystem is nothing but how we are related to each other, knowingly, unknowingly, directly or indirectly, but we are still being impacted by those interconnectedness. So if we talk about the natural or the nature ecosystem, it's basically, the definition goes as it's a community of living organisms. That means a plant, animals, or any sort of microbes in conjunction with the non-living components. So it can be like air, water, soil, right? So if you see that, in the ecosystem, as a human, we are related to all these elements, whether it's some sort of animal or some sort of plants or land, water, air. Nobody can live without any one of us. We cannot live without some sort of animal. If you look at it, there is a connection between us and animals, and if there's a disruption in that, it's going to have a great impact in the entire ecosystem. And it's all pretty much set. I mean, it's not going to change as compared to other artificial human establishments. It's not going to change. You will never see a lion eating a deer, a deer eating a lion, or a lion eating a grass, or a deer eating a flesh, right? It's all set in nature. It's not going to change. But the business ecosystem is very much different than the natural ecosystem. So what the business ecosystem says is, the concept is same though. The concept says your corporation or your business entity is not in vacuum. It is connected to so many different entities, knowingly, unknowingly, directly, indirectly, but for which you need to understand them, you need to control them, or you need to interact with them in some shape and form. But the difference between the natural ecosystem and the business ecosystem is, the business ecosystem is always constantly changing. There is a constant disruption in the business ecosystem. So if you see here, you have your core enterprise, where you have your departments, you have your processes, right? You have your entire supply chain. And as you go out in this circle or the ring, you will have your customers of customers, your suppliers of suppliers. And as you go further outside, you will have different elements. The governmental organizations, the trade associations, the different stakeholders. So what it says is, it is not going to remain constant. It's going to change very fast. So whenever there's a disruption in the ecosystem, it will mainly result in two things. Either it will create a problem or an opportunities. And whenever you have these two, whether it's a problem or opportunities, there will be a misalignment in the organization's vision, goal, and strategies. So let me give some examples of the problem or opportunities which may be because of the disruption in the ecosystem. So for example, some of the problems can be, a competitor launching a new product or adding new features to the existing product. That can be a problem for your company because now you need to react to it. Or a new regulation passed by the government. That's again a problem because now I need to make sure that all my systems or all my processes are now being forced to meet that law. On the other hand, we can have some opportunities too. For example, there can be some new technology introduced in the market, which now the organization can take advantage of. So it can be, for example, RFID. A few years back, there was a new technology introduced, radio frequency, RFID, which was heavily adopted by all these companies, and it saved a lot of money for them in terms of inventory management and the way they were managing their entire depots and warehouses. So it can result in problems or opportunities, but irrespective of that, the vision, goal, and strategies now will be not in sync. So the moment this happens, the management will seek some sort of solution in order to either solve the problem or exploit an opportunities. In either case, the management will decide, okay, we have some problem, we need to take care of it, or we have some sort of opportunities, we need to exploit that, and for that we need a solution. Now let's take an example or deeper understanding of what the solution is all about. Now the solution, people think it's only the IT component, but it's not like that. It is more than IT. A solution can be any of these four. It can be a bit of organizational restructuring, the way they want to merge some departments or close one of the departments. So you might have heard very often that they have one company has reduced their manpower by like 5,000 at one shot. So if you know the reason, it's most likely that they have closed one of the department, outsourced it to some other place, maybe India or somewhere in Canada or even in East Europe. And they thought that by reducing this or by getting rid of this whole department, we can save a lot of money, right? So it can be organizational restructuring, a business process re-engineering, or improvement initiatives, and we will talk more in the in the regular session. So in short, the way you do your business processes, you need to re-engineer them, or you need to improve them. You need to reduce the pain points, remove the bottlenecks, make it more efficient and effective. And once you do that, of course, in today's environment, you cannot discount the role of the IT. So the last component will be some sort of systems development or enhancement to the existing systems, which will be supporting these processes, right? So it can be any of four of these. It can be just one, it can be all four, it can be in that combination. So solution is, this is what the solution is all about. Now, if you go in an organization, it's most likely that they will have some sort of systems in place. So you may still need to go back and do some sort of business process re-engineering or improvement initiatives. And based on that, you will be updating or enhancing those systems so that they will support those processes. So that's a solution. But again, I mean, these companies don't have those expertise within their organization who can understand what needs to be done, who can build the solution and implement that solution for them. So what typically they will do is they will reach out to these consulting firms and they will hire a team of people who have the right expertise in building the solution. And of course, I'll focus more on the BA role because that's what this course is all about. But when I talk about the team, it will be definitely a management team. There will be a project manager. There will be the business analyst. There will be a technical architects, developers, if there is a system involved, and there are much more different roles involved. But we will focus more towards a BA. So as a business analyst, when you are involved in developing a solution, you will start with understanding the current state of the organization. What are the current processes? How do they work right now? What are the pain points, bottlenecks, or the issues they have? Similarly, you will do the same thing if they have any system in place. Now here the focus will be more towards from the business point of view, the process point of view, and here your focus will be more towards a system point of view. But of course, your systems will always support the processes. So once you nail down this part, it's very easy to you know figure out what the system lacks or where are the issues in the system. But sometimes it can be pure system or technical issues too. You may be, as a business analyst, you may have to get involved in that as well. So once you understand the current state of the organization, you come up with a future state, how you enhance the processes. That's what we call the future state or to be state. So you do the current state analysis, you do the future state mapping, and based on that you start eliciting the requirements from the stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, there are different levels of stakeholders. It's a very detailed topic, but just to briefly touch base upon that, stakeholder is any group or any individual who is getting affected by the outcome of the project. So you start talking to them and start eliciting the requirements. Once you elicit, you will analyze them, you will document them. You validate the requirements with your stakeholders. When I say validate, you want to make sure that the requirements you are doing are indeed solving the problems or helping them to exploit those opportunities for which the entire project has been kicked off. So this is very important here. As a business analyst, you will be doing most of the time you will be doing this role or this set of activities where you are understanding the current state of the organization. That means the processes, how they are being done right now. Understand the pain points, bottlenecks, issues. From that you come up with a future state. That means you make those processes more efficient and more effective by eliminating all these non-value added tasks, the pain points or the bottlenecks. And based on the future state, you start talking to your stakeholders and do a deep dive requirements elicitation, analysis, documentation, and validation of the requirements with your stakeholders. And this is an iterative and incremental process. It's not a one-time activity. It's as a BA, you will be doing it at different levels. You will be doing it at a very high level. As you come down, you will be doing it at a more granular level. But the goal is to realign the organization's the vision, goal, and strategy. Now this is a pyramid which is very important to understand. So as a business analyst, you don't start talking the system level requirements right from day one. You first, as I said, you need to first understand the business need of your stakeholders. Then you come down to the stakeholder requirements, which are more, refined and more granular. But again, they are still at a business level. There's no system involved here. Once you understand this level of requirements, that's when you go to the system level requirements and do the system level requirements. That means you see from the system's perspective. So the business requirements or the first layer is mainly to understand the needs, what they want. So they are mainly related to the vision, goals, and strategies of the organization. And sometimes you may not be involved in doing this, but it's important for you to know the basis of the project. What are we trying to solve, or what is a core business need of the company. So for example, they may, as we stated earlier, they may say that, okay, we want to improve the customer service, and right now, in order to process a loan, we are taking 10 days, 10 business days, whereas our competition is taking 2 days. We want to match that. So they have benchmarked it. When I say benchmark is nothing but you compare yourself against your competition, and of course it has to be reasonably done. You cannot compare against a competitor who is operating in a different level. It has to be realistic. So you want to you set some benchmarks. You said, okay, we are taking 10 days. We want to improve it. What is, I mean, how can we improve it? So you look at a competition which is reasonably close to you in the sense the way they operate, the size of the company, and many other factors. And you say, okay, they are taking 2 days. We want to match it to them. So that's at a business need, or at a very high level requirements. So based on that, you start talking to the different set of stakeholders and understand what they need, what are their requirements. So stakeholder requirements will be more specific, more geared towards a business side. So let's take an example. Now, a bank clerk, a personal loan bank clerk, you're talking to him or her, and he or she says that, okay, I should be able to review the loan documents. I should be able to send the application to the loan approving officer, right? So now you are getting, when you start talking to this stakeholder, he or she is giving you what they need. So you are still doing the requirements. As a business analyst, your role is to go to the root cause, or the true business need of your stakeholder, and make sure that your requirements are finally solving the problem or helping the company exploit the opportunities for which the entire project has been kicked off. And once you do this level of requirements, then you come down to the system level requirements, where you will be now getting into the very nuts and bolts of the requirements. And now you are changing your perspective from the business to the system. So here you will be doing different types of requirements, and this is your role as a BA. You need to do this. It's not something your stakeholder will be telling, okay, this is my functional requirement, this is my non-functional requirements. So as a business analyst, you have to extract, or you have to elicit those requirements and make sure that you are putting them in the right buckets. So these are some of the different types of requirements: functional requirements, non-functional requirements, interface requirements. There will be transition requirements. There will be a set of business rules, the GUI requirements, graphical user interface requirements, which you will be coming up with. And as I said, it's an iterative and incremental process. It's not a one-time activity. You will be doing it, revisiting again, refining it again and again, until the requirements are validated and they are confirmed by the stakeholders that everything looks good. This meets the project goal and objectives. And of course, if you are doing more towards agile, it is a different set of requirements. You don't go to the detail, to the nuts and bolts of the requirements. In agile, the requirements are done a little bit differently, but still the tools and techniques which are being used by the BA, the skills required by the BA will still remain the same. The way it changes is, in agile you are doing less of documentation. That means the focus is more towards doing some, of course you will be eliciting the requirements, you will be doing some analysis, but the documentation part is not in detail. It's a lightweight documentation, but the goal is to churn out requirements more frequently and more often than doing all the requirements upfront. So in the waterfall, you first do the requirements and then you go to the next phase, whereas in the agile you are not doing that way. You are doing those phases in parallel, but we'll talk more on that in the session. So this is another example of, you have the business need expedite the loan approval process from 10 business days to 2 days. Now you come to the stakeholder requirements, which are again at a business level, but now you are talking to your stakeholders and trying to understand what they need, what are their requirements. So a personal loan bank clerk will say, okay, I should be able to review the loan documents. He or she should be able to send the application to the loan approving officer for the final approval. So now you see that we have multiple requirements coming in from one stakeholder, right? A loan approving officer may say that I should be able to request additional information from the bank clerk. A loan approving officer should be able to request the customer's credit report from the bureau. Now when you go to the system level requirements, you see that your one stakeholder requirement can spawn multiple system requirements. So I'll just take one example here. A personal loan bank clerk should be able to review the loan documents, right? That's all this guy said. As a personal loan bank clerk, I should be able to review the loan documents. Now when I talk at the system level, when I'm doing the system level requirements, I'm saying the system shall allow the personal loan bank clerk to review the loan documents. That's my functional requirement. Additionally, from the same requirement, I have one more requirement saying the system shall allow the personal loan bank clerk to enter the comments against each application received for the loan processing. That's again a functional requirement. So the definition of functional requirement, just to quickly give you, it's a requirement which it's basically giving some sort of feature or some sort of function, or providing some sort of function or a feature to the user of the system. So here the user is the personal loan bank clerk, and the system is allowing them to do something. It's providing some sort of function or a feature or a functionality to the personal loan bank clerk. In first case, it's allowing them to review the loan documents, and in the second case, it's allowing them to enter some comments against each application they receive. So that's why it's called a functional requirements. So you may have one-to-many relationship between the stakeholder and the system requirements. Then you have some what we call non-functional requirements, which is basically the environmental constraints imposed on the system. So here we have saying that, okay, the system shall support 1,000 concurrent customers. How much customers it can, or how many customers it can handle at a time. So even though it's not something which will be used by this user, but definitely it will impact them if it's not met. So let's take an example of a banking application. Now your stakeholder says, okay, our application is used by 100,000 people, but we expect at least 1,000 people to be using it concurrently. That means at any given point of time, we need to make sure that at least 10,000 people are, or 10,000 people, when 10,000 different customers log in and start doing the transactions, the system should support that. So guess what, if you don't do this kind of analysis and do the requirements, and if you miss it, and 10,000, sorry, I said 10,000 or 1,000 people, whatever that number is, they log in on that day and start doing the transactions, the system will crash. And this exactly happened in 2 years back when um, the Obamacare application went live. It crashed on first couple of days. The exact reason was, so many people logged in at the same time that it could not handle the load. And somebody out there didn't do the good job on doing this kind of requirements. Or they didn't, they didn't expect it, or probably they expected, but they didn't, probably captured this whole thing, or they didn't do a good, foresight. But anyway, so that's also a requirement. And then you have the business rules, which is again some sort of policy constraints imposed by the organization on how they want to conduct their business. So again, the business rules are nothing to do with systems. Whether you do systems or whether you are implementing an application or you are not, your business rule will not going to change. It's exactly remain same whether you do it online or whether you do it offline. So I may say, okay, a loan amount of more than 800,000 US dollars must be approved by the loan approval committee. So that's my rule. It doesn't matter whether I'm doing it using a system or I'm personally walking in the bank with an application in my hand and getting it done. It's going to be the same. As a business analyst, you also have to be very you have to be very much what do you call it, or rather, let me put this way, most of the people will think, okay, it's a functional, non-functional requirements we have to take care of. But in addition to these, there are many other sort of requirements which we are talking. One is business rule, one is interface requirements. Now, you have to be very careful when you are doing the requirements and when your system is communicating with different systems. You need to make sure that you are capturing those level of requirements, and that's what we call the interface requirements. When two or more systems are communicating with each other, exchanging some sort of data, requesting some information, transmitting some response, you need to capture those requirements as well, and that is what we call the interface requirements. So maybe the system shall be capable to send the request to the Equifax bureau to receive the customer's credit report. So now our system, the one we are building, is sending the request to this external system to receive some sort of response. Here, the customer's credit report. That's an interface requirements. And then you have the transition requirements. Now the transition requirements are nothing but it basically you're doing the requirements just to move from the current state to the future state. So these are temporary in nature, but still they are important. And they are not there for the long time. I mean, they won't be part of the system for the entire life of the system. I mean, once you implement the new changes, you don't need those requirements anymore. So this is some of the definition of the BA from IIB and PMI. By the way, IIB is International Institute of Business Analysis, which is the gold standard for the BA discipline. And PMI, Project Management Institute, recently entered the BA, and that's going to be very interesting shift in how this whole discipline will move. A few months back, PMI introduced the BA certification. By the way, IIBA is it used to be the gold standard for the BA certification, and the most popular BA certification is the CBAP, Certified Business Analysis Professional, which is still issued by IABA. But as I said, recently, a few months back, PMI also came up with their own certification on a BA, and now they are, I think, at a, you know, they are competing with each other, and it's interesting how, the future will shape up, which certification will win over which one, we don't know. But as of now, CBAP is a very popular certification, and you know we do offer boot camps on CBAP too, if you are interested. Now this is some of the key processes which as a BA you should be aware of. Now this is again, what we have done is we have looked at the IIBA's BABOK, what we call, or rather what the book is named, Business Analysis Body of Knowledge, and we looked at the PMI's body of knowledge, and we consolidated these two and came up with this requirements process. Now this is not to say that that this is done in a stepwise fashion, that once you are done with one step or one activity, you go to the next and then you move to this step. This is done incrementally and iteratively. That means you will be doing it in multiple iterations, and with each iteration you will be building it or refining it. So the first thing you need to do is the needs assessment, what we just looked at, and probably that is already been done by another team. Generally what happens is the management will hire a management consultants to work with them closely. So these management consultants, they work with the CXO level people and help them understand what the problem is, or what where they want to exploit the opportunities. So the needs assessment is being done at a very high level. You may be involved or you may not be involved. Once that is being done, the team is set. They start eliciting the requirements. So as a BA, you will initiate the requirements processes. You will identify the stakeholders. You will start getting into the start talking to your stakeholders, understand the requirements, what their real business need is. You do the system level requirements. The third thing is you need to do the analysis. So analysis is, once you do the requirements, elicitation. Elicitation is getting the requirements and getting to the root cause of the problem or real business need of the stakeholders. So once you do that, you need to analyze them in a way that, okay, how is it helping the customers, or is it conflicting with some other requirements, or if you have any other system in place, is it breaking it, or are we duplicating the requirements? So you need to use a lot of tools and techniques to do your system level requirements analysis. Then comes the documentation. Again, in the people generally think that the BA is basically a bridge between the business and IT. They elicit the requirements, they gather the requirements, and they document it. So as I said, you can see that the role of a BA is much more than that. Of course, the role of the documentation is still there. So as a BA, you have to still document the requirements using certain templates, certain guidelines. And there's a major shift if you are doing a waterfall versus agile. If you are doing a waterfall, you have to do a certain set of documents, and we'll see them shortly. You will be doing FRDs or RTMs, use cases, and many more. But if you are doing agile, it's more geared towards lightweight documentation. You will be doing your elicitation analysis, but the documentation will be less, and it's a lightweight, what we call. That means you're not doing a bunch of documentation, just doing enough for the team to understand the requirements. That's all. Then comes a solution assessment. That means you go back to your stakeholders and you make sure that the requirements you have done are indeed solving their problems or helping them achieve or exploit the opportunities. So if that is not being met, the entire goal of the project is not met. That means that in bottom line is the project will be a failure if you cannot solve their problem or help them achieve what they want. So you need to go back to them and make sure that everything is in place, everything is aligned, their vision, goal, and strategy is again getting aligned by what you are by this entire project. And then comes the requirements management. That means you'll be managing the requirements throughout the project. The new requirements will be coming in. You need to make sure that you are tracing all the requirements. You are making sure that the requirements are what the requirements you are getting is within the scope of the boundary of the project. I mean within the scope of the project rather. When I say scope, it's the boundary within which you need to operate. And we'll talk more on the scope, what the scope is. So the requirements management is again, the role which, the task which is mainly done by the lead business analyst or the BA manager, but you should know what this task is doing or what needs to be done in this phase. Again, as I said, this is not a one-time activity. Here it looks like it's like stepwise. It's a sequential process, but it's not. It's a iterative and incremental process. And the business analysis, planning, and monitoring. Of course, somebody has to be somebody like BA manager or the PM will be doing this, or a lead BA will be doing this. They will be planning some BA activities even before the project is initiated or before the requirements are or before the requirements elicitation begins. There will be a set of planning activities done, and once a project is initiated, there will be somebody will be monitoring those activities, how everything is being done. So if you have a bunch of business analysts, the BA lead or the BA manager will be monitoring their work on a weekly basis, where they are with the requirements. Are there any issues or any bottlenecks from the requirements point of view? It can be some other issues too, it can be some intrapersonal conflict between interpersonal conflict between team members or between teams. So it can be anything of any of those things. And then you have the underlying competencies, like your good communication skills, good analytical skills, good documentation skills. So this entire thing is what we call the requirements processes. And again, as I said, it's we have aligned it with the BABOK and the PMI's body of knowledge, and we'll talk more in detail in the course. Now this is something very interesting. What we have done here is we have in these columns we have these requirements phases initiating, it's a project management phases in these columns: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, closing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. So these are the different 5 phases of the project, and this is coming from the PMI, PMBOK. And these phases are the requirements phases. Again, there are 5 different phases, as we saw: elicitation, analysis, documentation, solution assessment, and requirements management. Now this is each of these rows are the requirements processes. Now here you can see what we have done is we have aligned both the PM and the requirements processes And for each phase, we have identified what needs to be done from the requirements point of view. So for example, in the initiating phase, when you are doing in the elicitation, you will be using some set of tools and techniques to conduct those. Similarly, in the initiating phase of the project, once you start the analysis work, these are some of the tools and techniques you will be using. Different documentation you will be doing during the initiating phase. How you will be validating the solution. What are the tools and techniques you will be using in this phase? So on and so forth. So we have a detailed discussion in the course, and during each phase we will go in detail and see, okay, what are the tools and techniques, each one of these, and how to document them. And basically the entire course has been designed in such a way that we will cover almost each one of these, except few here which we think that it's just enough for you to understand the terms, but not in detail. So the entire course, once we start, you will have we'll go each one by one and help you how to do it first of all, and then how to document them. So many of them, these are like tools and techniques, and then certain documentation. So we'll cover everything in detail in the course. So these are some of the skills which are required on any given day. So of course, your number one is analytical skills. As a business analyst work, or as a business analyst, your number one skill is analytical skills, because you have to synthesize all the information coming in from different sources and analyze them. And as I said, you want to make sure that you're indeed solving the problem for which the entire project has been initiated. So on the same lines, you have the problem solving skills. You should be able to solve your stakeholders' problems. Your communication skills are also important. Now, when I say communication, it's more both verbal as well as written. Your emails, your documentation, everything has to be good. Creative and critical thought process. By that I mean, you have to be very innovative and creative in coming up with the solutions. So it's not like you are just taking a dictation from your stakeholders, but you should suggest something to them. Hey, how about if we do this way? Maybe this is much more effective for you guys, right? So you have to provide some sort of inputs back to your stakeholders. Be more creative rather than just a passive listener and take the requirements. Your presentation skills. You as I said, as a BA, you have to talk to so many different stakeholders, and it's very normal for a BA to give a demonstrations or presentations to different stakeholders. It can be to a very senior level team, or it can be to your to your own internal team. When I say internal team, that means that the implementation team, the group of developers, architects, testers, business analysts. Learning skills. I mean, when I say learning skills, it's you have to constantly keep updating yourself. In the IT, it's never You can say that I'm done with my learning. I don't want to learn anymore. I'm a MBA from so and so university. I have got 3.6 or sorry 3.9 GPA. So I'm done with my studies. So if you have that attitude, within 4 years you will be outdated. You won't be required anywhere in the team. So you have to keep learning new things, new tools, new technologies, new concepts, always. And I think it goes for any other role in the IT, not just a BA, but also whether you are a developer or an architect, tester, you need to keep learning new things. Your organizational skills is basically how you conduct your day-to-day affairs. How you coordinate your task, how you plan it, how you manage it. I mean, manage doesn't mean you have to manage a team. It can be managing yourself, your work, your time, your effort. Because you may be having like 5 meetings in a day. That means 5 hours are gone. So you have just 3 hours to do your real work. When do you do that? You need to, make sure you manage all those things within your time frame. The domain knowledge is important, but it's not one of the things which you cannot learn. So domain knowledge is every time you go to a new project, you may be exposed to a new domain. When I say domain, it's the industry. You may be working in a finance industry. Within the finance, you may be investment banking. It can be pure retail banking. It can be a mortgage, right? So it can be a derivative markets. So, or it can be, let's say, take healthcare. It can be healthcare. It can be logistics or airlines. So these are different domains. Now, we will also cover some of the domains, and you will have an option to pick your domain if you have any specific preference. So the way it will work is, we will give you training. We will give you all hands-on exercise using all the tools we have. And if you have any preference for the domain, you can select that and we will give you the domain exposure. Because when I say domain, you need to understand the basic terms and terminologies of the domain so that you can be more successful when you join a project. Um, Next is you should have a good rapport with your stakeholders so that you can influence them. When I say influence, it doesn't mean that you have to influence in a bad way, but influence in a good way. That means your suggestions are readily accepted by the stakeholders. So you should have a good, first of all, you should do your homework. You should have all your supporting material with you, the facts and figures, and you should have done all your analysis work. And then when you present it to your stakeholders, they should have that level of confidence in you to accept your suggestions. Some other are, like political awareness. Who, when I say political, it means, which stakeholder has more influence versus others, so that you can get your work done. Your technical awareness. Now, I'm not saying you to start coding, but at least to know some basic concepts like what is SOA, what is BPM, or what is a web service, what is cloud computing, things like that. You should know the concepts behind it. I'm not telling you to know in detail. Just familiar yourself with those terms so that when you talk to your architects or the developers, or when they are talking in the meeting, you are not clueless what they mean. As a business analyst, should be a good team player. That means you should be a friend of each and every member of your team, because your role is the one which is spanning across all the departments or sorry, all the different roles. You have to communicate with your stakeholders. You have to communicate with your PM, with your architects, testers, developers. So you have to be a team player. You cannot be seen as someone who is, biased towards one group, or somebody who is very arrogant, or very you know somebody who is seen as very egoistic and arrogant person. System thinking, that means you have to put systems perspective at some point of time, because in today's world, as I said, the solution will be definitely some system involved. So when I say systems perspective, that means you have to think how the solution will be built, and at the end of the day, how the business needs will be met using some sort of systems. Now, decision making, again, as I said, um, you have to guide and coach your stakeholders sometimes, and you have to decide for them. So oftentimes, my customers come back to me and ask me, okay, which way, what should we do in this case? So I give them suggestions, and sometimes, we need to take the decisions on our own, but of course we need to get their approval. So you don't need to decide. Of course, you will decide on their behalf, but you need to make sure that their approval is sought before you start implementing that. Okay, and some ethics, um, some knowledge of the organization you are working or your client's organization, and ability to work with different tools. Now, this itself shows the role or the importance of the business analyst. Now, 71% of the project failed because of the bad or poor requirements. Requirements defect account for 56% of the rework. Imagine this, $250 billion of annual waste traced to poor requirements. So you can see the role of the requirements is very important, or rather the role of the business analyst is so important that if you don't do a good job, or if you don't have a good business analyst on a team, you will end up first of all, the project will be a failure, or there will be a lot of rework done because nobody did a good job on the requirements, and ultimately it will end up in the red figures. That means you'll end up wasting a lot of money in terms of project failure, rework, because once you do the rework, there's already sunk cost. You already paid X amount of money to the people who have done it, and that's not going to be recovered. So you will be pumping in more money to fix those requirements. Okay, so quick look on the evaluation of the business analyst role. So here we have different roles. If you see the business analyst, business process analyst, IT business analyst, systems analyst, requirements engineer, business systems analyst, and then you have the business analyst generic title. So what are all these? I mean, are they same or different? Okay, yeah, by the way, you can type in your chat box. I'm seeing it on my next monitor, the other monitor, and I will reply to that. Okay, sure, thanks. Okay, so even though these are different terms, there's a lot of overlapping going on here. So the business analyst, as we see here, on this end of the spectrum, the role is more geared towards the business side. That means you are understanding the existing processes, you are identifying the pain points, bottlenecks, and you are coming up with the to-be processes. But once you go on this side, the right side of the spectrum, you're shifting your focus from business to systems. So from once you do, as I said, once you do your business process analysis from the current to the future state, you start extracting the system requirements in order to support the future state processes. So you design the features of the IT system and implement the new features of the IT system. So you can see from business I'm going to the system level, and the same thing happens here. My role as a business analyst is more geared towards the business. Here also it's more geared towards a business process analyst. But once I come to this side, I can see it's getting involved with the system. So here at the IT business analyst, we are talking both the business and system. The systems analyst is more geared towards the system and has to do less with the business. And similarly, this is again a mix or a hybrid of both business and system. So you can see, there are a lot of things which are common and some things which are unique to both the roles. But the course we have designed is more geared towards the IT business analyst or the business systems analyst, which is you will have the end-to-end spectrum. You will start from the business level, you understand the current state, you do the future state, you understand the requirements, the stakeholder requirements. From that you start eliciting the system level requirements, and we will show the different tools and techniques how to do them. Right, so this is what the course is all about. But just to, you might be coming across all these terms. Technically they are all different, but in loosely defined, they are all same. I mean, most of the people will think, they are all same, but theoretically they are all different. And if you go on any job portal, you might be seeing all these different titles, but the description is kind of same. This is interesting for you guys because that's where, and that's why you are here. I see so many people getting excited now just by looking at this. So you can see, as a business analyst, the average pay is between 80 to 90K. But as you go, as you gain more experience, and also it depends on many other factors like, which location you are working, which domain you are working, you should expect some more pay, or you should expect some less pay rather, depending on those factors. But of course, I've never seen somebody getting here 60K or so. The least I've seen is 75, and that was a junior level business analyst role in the suburbs of Chicago, which I would say, it's a good starting point though, looking at the role and the location. But on an average, you should expect around like between, I would say, 90 to 100K. So if you're in the DC metro area or any other big cities, I would say 90 to 100K is the range. Again, if you are in New York City working in the financial district with 8 years of experience, of course you should be expecting 125 or more. So that will depend, on those factors. So again, you can see here the graph going up as you gain more experience. Now the BA role is something which is not only going to remain, but it's going to be in huge demand by 2020. And the reason is, a lot of projects have failed because of the bad requirements or poor requirements, as we just saw a few slides back. So the main focus is to have an expert who can do the requirements. So in the initial good old days, somebody who was developing, the developer used to do the requirements. He or she used to do the analysis and design, and then they used to test by themselves. But now you have these systems, huge systems coming in, right? Now, unlike like 25 years ago, where the scope of the systems were limited. In today's environment, you have so huge systems spanning across multiple units, multiple stakeholders, and so much is at stake for the business that they don't want to take risk by just giving this role to somebody who is not an expert. So they want to have somebody who has a good knowledge, theory, practical knowledge, good exposure of the tools and techniques being used, and who can communicate well to the audience. And they are ready to pay a good amount of money who can do this job well. Now, I won't go here, but you can, probably you have done this research before, and that's why all of you are here to attend the demo. But you just do a reality check, go on any of these portals and do a search on the business analyst or systems analyst or business systems analyst. The amount of hits you will get will be amazing. And that basically shows the demand of the business analyst is just increasing day by day. Now quickly, why you should pursue your career as a BA. Now, for me, of course, money is important, but one of the reasons why I like to work as a BA is because every time I work on a project, I'm solving something new problems. I'm solving something, first of all, I'm getting exposed to new problems, and then I'm solving them. It's not something repetitive. Every time on a new project with a new client or even with the same client, we have something new issues, new problems, or new opportunities which we need to help the client to solve them or to help them achieve it. The next reason is to build on your past work experience. So as I said, 4 years back, sorry, not 4 years back, 14 years back, when I started my career, I started my career as a as an analyst actually with IIM Ahmedabad, and there I was working with my professors uh, to solve the problems of the clients. So we were doing in consulting for the clients. So that was the first time I got exposed to this sort of role, analysis, research kind of role. And then I moved to an oil and gas company in Mumbai, where I was working in the business development area as a management trainee. So we were implementing an ERP package across the enterprise, and I was an SME. I was giving the requirements to the implementation team who was there to implement the ERP. So at that point of time, I used to think, why are they asking so many questions? I mean, can't they get this? But that was the first time I got exposed to this sort of role where, I was giving the requirements. I was not taking them, I was giving it. That was the first flavor of this BA role I got in like 14 years back. And subsequently, I worked in like, like 4 years in that role, in that area as a business development member. So when I came to US in 2003 and came for my second MBA in finance, so the first thing I could think was, how can I reuse my experience I did in India? Like I had like 4.5 years of work experience in India. So that was my first question, I don't want to get, or I don't want to lose that. I want to use it somewhere. So the first thing that came in mind was I want to reuse it in this way. I will start on the other side of the table. That means I'll start my career as a business analyst now because I've already, I've got some experience in giving the requirements. Now let me learn the tools and techniques of the BA. And I start I start getting the requirements from the stakeholders. So you should always think of, using your past experience in a way you can, utilize it. The third reason why you should do is, it's a very good way of keep learning new things, because as I said, every project will put you in a new environment. That means new domain, new tools, new standards, new way of doing the requirements. And when you are put in this kind of environment, you will automatically learn a lot of things. The next reason is, you want to put yourself in the forefront of the IT. As I said, the first thing that happens on any project is the requirements. You don't go to the you don't go to the design, you don't start coding it. You have to first do the requirements, whether it's a business level requirements or a system level requirements. That's the first step that happens. And as a business analyst, you can think how important that role is. It's like a make or break for any project. The financial remuneration is of course very important. You are almost at the top of the food chain there. So financial package, financial benefits will be definitely a very lucrative area here, and you will be compensated in a very good way there. As I said, you should be expecting anywhere between 90 to 100K, more or less, depending on many factors, the location, the experience, and also sometimes, the project funding. So if the project is funded nicely, people will be paying more to you as compared to if the project is funded in a very, conservative way. That means, yeah, they have to be very careful on how much they spend. So you might be, getting a little less there. So financial remuneration is always a factor when you are selecting this role. The next important piece is, if you want to be tool agnostic or a technology agnostic, that means you don't want to depend on any specific tool. So I'll give you an example. A few years back, like 10 years back precisely, some of my friends went into the SAP. I didn't go for SAP because I knew that, in SAP, the projects are limited. And once the project is implemented, they don't want to keep you there because the SAP resources are much expensive. So the moment they implement this project, they will basically dismantle the whole team. And then you have to keep looking for a new project. The second thing is, not every company is implementing SAP. It's not out of 10, maybe 2 or 3 will be implementing it. The rest are coming up with their own solutions, their own in-house systems. So you're not that marketable when you have those kind of skills. Of course, you will be in demand. I'm not saying SAP guys are not in demand, but you will be in demand only in the companies which implement SAP. If I don't, let's take, I have my own company, but if I'm not implementing an SAP, for me, SAP consultant is a worthless guy. Because I don't need that skill. For me, a simple BA role is enough. And I've seen a lot of issues with them because they have to keep moving every 6 months or 5 months or 8 months. They have to look for new projects. That means new cities. With families, you cannot move very easily. And as I said, every time you're done with the project, you have to start looking for the new projects, which is not a fun. So as a BA, the good thing is you are tool agnostic or you're technology agnostic. You're given any tools. You can be given a rational tools. You can be given Microsoft tools or any other tools. You should be able to still use it, use your old, use your skills and expertise and do your job. You don't need a special training for that. When I say special, I mean maybe 1 or 2 days of training is enough, but these tools are pretty much easy these days. They are very user friendly. So you don't need us, like SAP guys where you need to go for like extensive training or so. So these are some of the reasons why you should pursue your role as a BA. That's my take on it. Okay, so that's typically how your career will go. That's a career trajectory of a BA. So you start with a BA, business analyst. You go to the lead business analyst, become a manager. Now here you can have two different paths. You can either become a business architect, become a manager, and become an enterprise architect, or you can go towards a PM role, which is project coordination, project manager, or a program manager role. So you can have two different paths. Either you want to be on the technical side, you go towards this route. You want to be on the non-technical side, you can take this route. And of course, I wanted to show that basically some sort of education is always good and some experience. So I missed this piece here, but I'll fix it. So some experience and some knowledge, education, you can do this. Now let's talk about something on the training. So the way we do is, as I said, our training program is basically for 5 to 6 weeks. So we have divided our course into three different modules. The first module is building a foundation. So in the first module, we focus more on the theory part, the concept, the principles behind the BA, and I'll talk more in detail in the next slide. So we start with building the foundation, and as we move towards or as we move forward, we expose you to different the core fundamental concepts along with a project, what we call the comprehensive capstone project, CCP. So this is nothing but we right from the day one we will start a project and we will work it through the end, seeing how it evolves from day one to the day we complete the course. So by 5th week, we'll start building the resume, we'll start doing the interview prep work, and also if we also have a soft skill development workshop where we'll talk more in detail about the soft skills. That means how we have got so many people who come who don't have any work experience, so basically we put them in that environment where they feel more comfortable before they actually go to a project. So we start doing those resume interviews and soft skill development around like 5th week, or rather sometimes even by the 4th week we can start, and by the end of the 6th week you should be able to start taking interviews with the client. So this is module 1 where we cover the basic fundamentals, foundations and principles. So what is a BA, how the organizations are structured, what are different types of organizational structures, the key management concepts like the Lean, Six Sigma. Then we also take a look at the stakeholder analysis. What are the different types of stakeholders, the different types of requirements in detail. Now, since everything is part of the project management, we have to understand the project management discipline as well. So we'll also cover the PM discipline. We'll go over the SDLC phases, software engineering practices, and the key requirements processes we just saw a few slides back, but in more detail. The module 2 is where we spend most of the time. This is where your core skills are being developed. So and this is where 80% of the time we'll be spending on module 2. And here we'll also expose you to a lot of um, tools and techniques, how to do the requirements, elicitation, analysis, documentation. We'll also make you write a lot of artifacts, and we'll be using a lot of different tools. The most basic tools will be MS Office. Visio will be one of the tools we will be heavily depending on. We will be using it for different sorts of modeling, business process modeling, UML modeling. And of course, MS Office like Word for writing the use cases, user stories, functional requirements documents, and many more. And in addition to the MS Office and the Visio, we'll also use some of the other tools which will be used for example, requirements management tool will be one of the, these are all open source tool which you don't need to buy. We will provide you with the tools for the requirements management, for the defect tracking, right? Now for BPM and sort of modeling, we will have another tool which we will see. So there are different tools, like in all we have like 5 to 6 tools we will be working on. And then the module 3 we will have some exposure to what the role of a BA is during the testing, what are the different testing concepts, principles, and the testing, the key testing methodologies being used. We'll also touch base on the SQL, which is kind of good to know. We won't go into the detail, but also we will tell you the basic fundamentals of the SQL. We'll also expose you to some of the new things like service-oriented architecture, web services, cloud computing, and the BPMN, and business process model and notation. It's good to know. The BPMN is basically a set of notations being used in order to come up with the business processes. Now, you may not need to know in detail, but at least you need to know what the BPMN is and what are the basic notations being used in order to do your day-to-day modeling. Okay, so the training highlights, we are 3 instructors here. So as I said, my name is Chetan Mehta, and we all 3 are certified business analysts. So we all 3 have a CBAP certifications, and I have a PMP and certification, which is project management professional, and I also have a BPM certification, which is business process management certified. The second thing is all our courses are aligned with IIBA and PMI's body of knowledge. That means the good thing is if you decide to go for certification, you already have read the book, because the entire course has been designed based on that. It's not a single word has been just lifted and shifted here. Everything has been handcrafted. So we all 3 read these 2 books, and in addition to these books, we have referenced more than 10 books and took the best out of it and developed this material. So what also the next thing is, we keep updating our material every few months, because as you know, in IT, every few months you will have new things coming in. You don't want to keep your material getting outdated. So we take a look every 3 months. We sit down and make sure that we update it to reflect the latest industry trends and the demands. We also emphasize on the real world or the real-time scenarios which you will be exposed to. So as I said, the first module is laying the foundation more towards the principles, theory, and the concepts, which are always important. So it's not like we are just throwing some buzzwords, or we are just preparing you to get a job. It's not, the training is not just to give you a job. it is much more than that. It is basically, as I said, the name of the course is core competency. That means we are building a good foundation which will be there, which will be with you for the rest of your life. Based on the foundation, we will expose you to so many different, hands-on experience in terms of hands-on documentation, workshops, how you do the requirements, eliciting the requirements. We'll also do the role playing and expose you to the real world scenarios. So now you are combining your theory and now you, as well as the practical application of the theory in the real world scenario. So to reinforce this, again, we have a lot of case studies and assignments given. So every week I'll be giving you a lot of assignments, and we have a lot of case studies which you will be working on. And of course, once you get placed, we will be there to support you if you need. So we don't charge it it's a free support as long as you take the training from us. And also there's a free mentoring session. If you want to get certified, we will give you free mentoring sessions. So, for example, preparing a package application, reviewing the application, any tips and advice you need, we will give you. Now this is, maybe you may not need now, but just to let you know that these are some of the good certifications you have from different sources. So as I said, IIBA is the gold standard for business analysis, and they have two certifications. The first one is CCPA, Certification of Competency in Business Analysis, which is not that popular. The CBAP is the one which is more popular, Certified Business Analysis Professional. Now PMI has also started their certification, which they call the Professional in Business Analysis, and that's relatively new as compared to the IIBA's CBAP. The CBAP was introduced almost 10 years back, whereas IIBA introduced just a few months back. And then you have a lot of different sources like community colleges, public, private colleges. They offer these certificate programs on the BA. But you may not need this in near future. Maybe a few years down the line you may need it. Okay, so any questions and concerns you have, feel free to email me. It's almost like I took more than 1 hour, so yeah. You have any questions? Okay, so I guess we don't have any questions so far, and it was nice giving you this demo, and I hope to see you in the class again. And by the way, we have this next session starting on 10th of April, and please do reach out to me, call me or email me if you have any questions or concerns, and really appreciate your presence in this demo. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye.